WAER Sports proudly presents the Ostrom Avenue Podcast.
Lawrence on first down, throws over the middle. It's intercepted. Garrett Williams. He runs past the 30, the 20 on the near side, cuts inside the 10, the 5, and Garrett Williams strolls into the end zone for an orange touchdown.
In transition, Boeheim, right wing 3. You bet! Sets up a screen near side to Strickland. Broke a tackle. He's in the open field with the convoy heading to the end zone for a Syracuse touchdown.
Taking you through all the highs,
20 yards from Cage straight away. Over the head shot, unleashed and in. Jamie Trimboli, are you kidding me? Added to the reel.
Bryce under pressure, he's lit up, and there's the fumble. It's recovered by Syracuse. 10-5, touchdown. Jeff Canton-Arku.
Syracuse comes in to Michigan State's backyard and stuns the Spartans.
and all the lows.
Jones up top, and Barrett slams it home with the left hand. Trey Jones, the facilitator, and Barrett has 30 points.
Louisville 30, Syracuse nothing. From Cardinal Stadium in Kentucky, the Orange shutout for the first time since 2016. Sidewinder, oh yeah, Pat Cavanaugh.
And now, here are your hosts, Ben Shulman and Johnny Gadamowitz.
Welcome to the Ostrom Avenue Podcast. Syracuse is just about out of it, but the Orange have a lot to play for, and we're going to cover that coming up. With me are Johnny Gadamowitz and Ethan Frank. I'm Ben Shulman. Guys, I guess we'll start with Johnny. How are you doing?
I'm good, Ben. I'm not too shabby. I mean, all things considered, where this team is at right now. I mean, maybe not even NIT territory at this point. We'll hop into it. Who would have thought that here we are on March 3rd, March 4th, and we're talking about a team that might not even make the NIT tournament, Ethan. I mean, what happened?
Well, the good thing is that you're looking fabulous tonight, Johnny. I know you can't see him.
For the listener,
Johnny
in the full
doing
suit.
our video,
Yeah.
I
Johnny
put
in the
on
full
the full
suit.
But.
Yeah, doing well. I can't say I was thrilled with the way Monday's game went, but I can say I'm thrilled with the way it turned out for my picks.
That's true. It did turn out pretty well for your picks. We're going to get to Monday, but let's start on Duke. So that game is Saturday, 97-72 win for the Blue Devils. And I don't think we'll have very different things to say about it. I looked up at the scoreboard at one point in that game, and it's 41-16. I don't know if I've ever seen that score at a basketball game I've been at before.
I watched that game from Charlottesville, and I regretted asking the waitress to turn it on.
Did you ask her to turn it off after the first 5
Did not ask her to turn it off, but it's a good thing people weren't paying attention to that game because Florida State had just hit a buzzer beater in the previous hour to beat Virginia, so nobody was really paying attention. But that was the bad news, and then it got even worse for Syracuse. They could not stop anything on the inside, but it's not even about the little things. It's just an overall talent gap between these two teams. And Ben, you were at both of these games, and I'm sure you saw it firsthand. Just athletically,
I was actually not in Chapel Hill. I will say I was not. Oh, both Duke games.
Both Duke games.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, yes,
Yeah,
I was at both Duke games.
Both Duke games.
Yeah, it doesn't even look like these teams play in the same conference. I mean, it legitimately looks like Duke is a class above, and with this it's a weaker ACC, but it's not a weaker Duke. So they quite literally are a class above pretty much everyone else.
In every single department. I mean, normally when you have a frustrating loss like this, there's at least one or two things you can point to make you feel a little better. Not the case. Duke checked the box in every single category, every single statistic. But for me, what it really boiled down to was, Ethan, you mentioned it before, just the athleticism. Yeah. I mean, you take Duke's worst athlete in the starting 5, put him up against Syracuse's best athlete, it's not even close. You're not going to win games that way.
No.
So the weird thing about this game is Buddy Boeheim plays fairly well. 23 points, 10 of 21 shooting. Joe Girard's not terrible. 18 points, 7 of 16 shooting. He was 2 for 8 from 3, but that's not awful. And then you go to the other 3 starters. They combine Swider, Boeheim, Anselm for 2 points. And I'm not highlighting that as the problem. That's really not what I want to get into. It's the guys who scored instead of them. Barama Sidibe with a perfect 11 points, 4 for 4 from the floor.
Love that.
Did miss a free throw, but that's okay. And then Benny Williams, 14 points, season high by far. I believe he doubled his previous season high, and 6 rebounds. I mean, this was, I don't even have to say it. This is by far the best Benny Williams has ever played at the collegiate level.
It wasn't even close, and we saw it from that first layup.
Oh, yeah.
That up and under he had against, I think it was against Banchero and Williams down low, went right around them, up and under the basket. And you could see Benny was the only guy on the court for Syracuse to compete athletically at the level that Duke was. And obviously Benny is not there, from a physically mature body standpoint like the guys of Duke, but he has the athleticism, he has the lateral quickness to be able to move against these guys. And once he hit that first jump shot, I think things really clicked, because throughout the last month, Benny has not been making those, short jump shots. So once he hits that first one, it gives him a little more confidence. Unfortunately, the news came out today that he suffered an injury against North Carolina, and he's not going to play again this season.
About as bad of a turnaround after that. You get injured in the next game. Like, I know the games don't matter, but he has no time to even use the momentum to ride it out into a solid end of the season.
Especially for someone that, you look at this point in the year and you think based on where we are in the calendar right now, right, he's getting better every time he steps on the court, or at least he should be. So to have that come at the detrimental time that it is, especially after the Edwards injury, the Symir injury, not that this team had much to salvage at this point anyway, but if anything, for Benny personally, you want to roll into next year feeling good about what he gave you down the stretch. And now, unfortunately, after a solid performance against Duke, Orange fans aren't going to have the chance to see if he can take that next step.
So Syracuse falls in that game despite Benny's 14, 97-72. Quick turnaround for the Orange. 2 days later, they go to Chapel Hill and take on North Carolina the first time they play against Hubert Davis. And this one is the frustrating one. I don't think anyone thought that they would beat Duke, but we spoke with Brendan Marks, who gave Syracuse a pretty legitimate shot at beating North Carolina.
He did. He was not high on North Carolina at all.
And he was right. Syracuse comes out of the gate leading this game, and then the Orange lead late in this game, and they Wake Forest it all over again.
It's so frustrating to think of how many games this team has blown this season. You can go all the way back to the non-conference. Villanova, you're up at halftime. Then think about the beginning of ACC play. Virginia, Miami, Wake Forest, Florida State, all in a row. You have a chance to win every single one of those games. You look at the Virginia Tech game. These are all opportunities. Even if you only win 2, 3, 4 of these games out of the, 7 or 8 opportunities you had, you give yourself a much better chance at making any sort of postseason. But it's been the constant theme. And that is collapsing down the stretch because you don't have a lot of depth. You're asking your starters to play big minutes, and then you get tired. And that's what's happened.
I mean, every starter except for Frank Anselm logs over 40 minutes in that game. You essentially waste the Cole Swider game that it felt like was inevitably coming sooner or later. I know he was shaky against Duke, obviously, but we saw Swider taking steps in the right direction. I don't know about you guys. I had a hunch for a while that Cole was just waiting to have a coming out party, if you will, and it came against UNC. It's unfortunate that the Orange couldn't take advantage. I mean, when you're getting 36 from Swider and you're losing the basketball game, that's frustrating. And, of course, part of that is you only get 14 from Buddy. Jimmy regresses a little bit with 10. But at the end of the day, I think if you reflect back, Ethan, on all of those frustrating losses that you mentioned, given, how crucial of a game this was, this one might take the cake.
Yeah. It's so frustrating to waste a performance that Swider had. I mean, maybe this is the game that convinces him to use that extra year of eligibility and come back to Syracuse. We'll see about that. But he's played his best basketball over the past month. I don't think you can dispute that at all after how poorly he shot to begin the season. But Ben, you started this, and now we're coming back to you. It's just the overall theme of this season was falling apart late in games.
Yeah, this game, by the way, I don't think I said it explicitly, an 88-79 loss in overtime. Syracuse had the ball, and for those who don't know, I said they Wake Forested it. Syracuse had the ball.
Quite literally Wake Forested
up
it.
1 with 15 seconds left, like the Wake Forest game where they were up 2 with about 10 seconds left. And you still have to make your free throws, but let's be honest here. To win the game, they had to inbound the ball. This time, unlike Wake Forest, Buddy was open. And it was a
horrendous pass.
It was a bad pass.
It was not even close to a good pass.
No, neither guy makes a play, Joe doesn't make a play on the pass, and Buddy can't keep it inbound.
Joe decides, I'm going to chuck a chest pass at Buddy's knee while he's running to the corner, where he's likely to get trapped if he catches the ball. Yeah. So it was, you could throw the ball into the backcourt. You could throw the ball into the backcourt. I don't know why you're not running into the backcourt. It was just a mental lapse, and we've seen that a lot this season, unfortunately. Very uncharacteristic for a Jim Boeheim coach team to have this kind of mental lapses. We saw it against Wake Forest. We saw it again against North Carolina, and it's not like they've been few and far between this season. There have been a lot of times where Syracuse has made mental mistakes.
And what makes it 10 times worse, at least in the context of this game in particular, I don't know about you guys, when Joe Girard sunk that shot, I thought the Orange were going to win this game. I think everybody.
I was a little
probably
worried
did.
about overtime.
Even at
I
that
gotta
point,
say,
still
I was a little when he hits the shot to tie it.
Yes.
And it's only my
It was one of those
I've been here for 4
yes
years
shots.
pessimism where
Fair
it's
enough.
like they did everything they could to get to overtime, and they just never have anything left in overtime. But I would agree that 99% of people were gung-ho the Orange have it.
I was more confident when Brahma had the tip-in with a minute left to take the lead.
But Syracuse, regardless of our confidence, ends up falling in this game, and we went through some of the issues there. But I think what we really wanted to do with this episode is zoom out. There's no guest today. It's just the three of us here in the studio.
Just chopping it up.
Yeah, because the season's almost over.
Yeah.
And we could get someone to tell you about how good Miami is. And I think I want to get into the importance of this Miami game because there's one very important reason why they need to win this game. But we don't need to break down the Hurricanes. What we need to do is break down the Orange. They're 500. There's one game left in the season. Johnny, what went wrong this year? Like, what sticks out? A lot went wrong. But in your mind, what's the primary reason that they're here?
We've already hit on one of them, and that being the late game struggles, obviously. But I want to hone in on something that I think Orange fans have been sort of crying about for months, if you will. It's that limited depth. I mean, you think about the way that this team plays. Coming into the year, we knew it, right? No one was saying back in November, December, this is a deep team. This is one that Coach Boeheim is going to have options. But let's play the hypothetical for a second. Say that Jesse Edwards does not give you nearly the breakout year that he did. And obviously it comes to an end much sooner than anyone would have liked. But from a Syracuse standpoint, there was really no one that you could turn to outside of the starting five right from the get-go. And yes, Symir got there eventually, but even still, I think Symir probably didn't pan out to be the player that any of us had hoped, the best version of Symir that we were going to get. And then beyond that, did Anselm show flashes? Certainly, but I think for a Syracuse team as a whole, that really only, and again, that's Jim's, that's the way he likes to do things. He's not going to run out much more than 7 or 8. But there were times, and I think this most recent UNC game plays perfectly into that, where if you have just a little bit more reliability outside your starting five, guys that you can turn to and acknowledge, okay, maybe there's going to be a little bit of a drop-off in production, but not to the extent where it's a crazy drop-off. It's a completely different season, and at no point this year was there a moment in time when you felt like when Jim Boeheim went to the bench that level of play was going to be sustained. So for me, it's the depth. I know there's a whole lot we can nitpick, and it doesn't come as a surprise, but I still walk away pointing.
For me, it's the defense, because you've seen so many years what a good defense can do, that sometimes having a good defense and a bad offense is better than having a good offense and a bad defense.
Almost every time, I'd say.
Yeah, and if you could stop people, there are times where you'll be able to get hot and, maybe win a game 65-63, like you've seen with Syracuse teams in the past. The 2018, 2016 teams remind me of that a lot, those teams that went far in the tournament. And I would say last year is a bit of an aberration with that, but he just goes on an absolutely scorching hot streak. But it's the defense, because you are so reliant on shooting the ball well that if you have any kind of off-night shooting, you have no chance to win. Like, absolutely zero. You have to have Cole Swider score 36 points in the Dean Dome for the game to only go to overtime. Like, you have to this team needs 3 players at least with 15 points to have a chance to win, and that is not sustainable, and that's why they're 15-15, because they can't stop people on the defensive end, and then they can't shoot it well enough on the offensive end to make up for their defensive struggles. I don't know which side you favor more, Ben, but I think it's the defense because of the pressure it puts on your offense.
We're talking about the troubles of this season, just Johnny, Ethan, and myself here on the Ostrom Avenue podcast, and I think that my answer, it doesn't really lean one way or the other. It kind of brings the two together, and it touches on something that Brendan told us last week. It's just a lack of talent. I hate to say it, but this team just isn't good enough to reach the standard that Syracuse teams are in the past. And whether it's, there's not enough talent on the bench or, frankly, the starters aren't talented enough defensively, Brendan was saying it's the hardest thing to convince fans that the guys on your team sometimes just aren't good enough. And these guys just aren't good enough. Like, let's think about the prospects of some of the teams, even recently, who haven't been all that good. Multiple guys who you knew were going to get a look in the NBA. I know Buddy's probably going to get a look in the NBA, but I don't think a ton of people legitimately think he can stick there athletic-wise. And he's probably best served as a number 2 option on a really good team, not a number 1. Like, I don't think we've gotten less out of Cole and Jimmy than we expected. Cole scoring 14 points and grabbing 7 rebounds a game. Jimmy scoring 13 and 6.
Do you know who the highest rated player on Syracuse is that was not,
in
that
terms
did
of
not
prospect
transfer?
rating?
Yeah, that did not transfer in because
I will say
Cole
there's
Swider
flaws with that for talent, but
because Cole Swider and Seimer Torrance were both 4 stars. Do you know who the highest?
The highest rated? I wasn't Buddy. The highest rated player, I think. Benny Williams.
Besides Benny.
But besides Benny, I'm going to say Frank Anselm. I thought he was pretty highly rated.
It is Frank Anselm by a hair over Jesse Edwards and Joe Girard. 3 stars.
Yeah.
Like, he's an 89.7 grade.
Yeah. And I
so,
think...
like, that's 200s. That's like 200s.
Yeah, it's not good enough.
Maybe high, low, like the top of the 100 ranks. It's not good.
No.
It's simply not good enough. And, you could say, Cole Swider is a 4-star. Seimer Torrance was a 4-star. Benny Williams was a 4-star. But, excluding Benny, there's a reason those guys had to transfer from their previous school and go to Syracuse.
For sure. And the recruiting is a huge part of it. I mean, this team used to live on the ESPN 100.
Right.
Now, everyone talks about for days and weeks and months, if they have one guy on there, then we'll talk about him forever. Like, you go back to my freshman year 4 years ago, and neither of these guys...
We get it, you're old.
Neither of these guys work out. Younger than Johnny. Neither of these guys work out, but... You originally get a commit from Darius Baisley, who's top 10.
That was a...
I know, but you get a Baisley.
That was out of your control, what happened with Darius Baisley.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to say, look how good recruiting was then. You get Baisley in the top 10. You get Jalen Carey, who's, I believe, he was in the 30s. I believe he slipped to the low 40s by the end of it.
He was a 4-star.
But now,
Jalen Carey's not that good at basketball.
Neither of them worked out for Syracuse at all. But that was normal. To have a 10 and a 40, that I would dare say was even a little bit of a slip. We were like, okay, it's a mediocre recruiting year. That's what all the freshmen, at least the people my age, were thinking as they were high school seniors looking at this class. Now, I mean, look, there was a Dior Johnson commit, but that was way more fake than Baisley.
Right.
Like, everyone knew that was going to be a problem from day one. They just don't bring in the talent. They don't grow the talent. I'm not going to go into the whole what kind of player they're recruiting for thing again because I've done that a million times this year. But they used to get better 3-stars.
Right.
It's just a whole different game.
The issue that I've come across is that when Syracuse moved from the Big East to the ACC, Jim Boeheim was still recruiting players that he thought would be at Syracuse for 2, 3, 4 years. And the problem ended up being is that, to his credit, he was able to develop them quickly, that they were so good that first or second year that they left early and he did not have the backup plan. Like, Tyler Ennis should have been a 2 to 3 year starting point guard for Syracuse.
Malachi Richardson should have played 4 years.
Right, same with Tyler.
Richardson
and Leiden should have been 4-year players. And that's made the issue. O'Shea Brissett, should not have been a 2-year player at Syracuse. And that's the issue, is that this team did not compile enough depth in terms of recruiting over the years. And when guys leave early, then you have to go fill a hole with someone who may not be the best person to fill that hole. And that's what it all comes down to.
And to anyone that's trying to take the flip side of that talent argument, I mean, I don't know who would.
No, I can't.
What even is the flip side of that argument?
What it comes down to, for me at least, is this. You think about the pieces that Syracuse has right now. Go put Joe Girard on a team that is a projected 4 or 5 seed right now.
He's their 7th or 8th best
exactly.
player.
And that's what it is. And Syracuse is relying on JG3 to be what?
Second
best player?
Maybe third.
It's
if
absurd
everyone's
to see the drop off in talent and to think that expectations haven't really wavered. Like, I mentioned it before, Ben. You came into the year knowing, okay, the depth wasn't going to be great, but I'd argue even from a starter standpoint, like Joe Girard you could have said the same thing that I just said about JG3 back in November.
Right.
And people would be willing to admit that. So to think that this was a team that was capable of being in the top 4 or 5 teams in the conference, I don't know where those expectations ever really stemmed from to begin with.
It's a bit of a boombox around here, but I think, and that contributes a lot, or not, you know what I mean, an echo chamber around here, and I think that can contribute sometimes to the overblown expectations. I think there were some people, I remember talking to Wes Durham on the preview show, I don't think people realized how bad the defense was going to be. So some people thought, well, the offense is awesome, so there's a chance if it clicks that they're really good.
Right, and
the
they're
offense
still
has
good.
been
right. They're still
good.
They're still
Not great.
They're still 18th on Ken Palm in offense. It's not like
they play
not,
at a high
right.
pace, which helps them score a lot too. But
221st on defense.
Yeah, that's not acceptable, and that's led to this record. Now the question is, 1 game left in the season. We'll see how many they can win or play in the ACC tournament. What do we expect the rest of the season to be, Ethan? How many more games do you think they have, and what do they end up playing?
I truly believe they will blow out Miami. I do not think Miami is very good. I think Syracuse just absolutely collapsed when they played them last time. That was a Syracuse bad more than it was more of a Miami good. I think on what is, as Boeheim said, Coach Boeheim said yesterday with a friend of the pod, Brent Axe on ESPN Syracuse, that this is 100% Buddy's final season. It will be his final game in the Carrier Dome. These fans love Buddy Boeheim. There is absolutely no way around that. They will give him the biggest ovation when he lifts his jersey up during the Senior Day festivities. I think he'll have a great game, and I think Syracuse is going to win this game by at least 15 points.
I disagree. I think I'm a little higher on Miami than you are. I think the trio of McGusty, Wong, and Moore are going to be tough to stop. And you talk about an Orange defense that has struggled all year. I don't like any of those matchups for Syracuse. And then you throw on today's news, no more Benny Williams. So what, are you running out 6 guys against a gritty, scrappy Miami team?
Hey. Don't talk about my guy John Bola-Jock that way.
John B with an awesome game against Duke.
Oh, yeah.
2 points on the scoreboard, but $1 million in our hearts. Yeah, I really don't know what's going to happen in Miami. If you made me bet, I'd probably say they lose.
I want to pick. Okay, please go ahead and pick Miami in Ostrom picks.
We'll see.
Please go ahead and pick Miami.
For me, it's the Miami game. I think they have a good shot at. They're going to be the 8 or 9 in the ACC tournament.
They will. Yeah, they will be in that 8-9 game.
So I think they have a good shot to beat Florida State in the 8-9 game. They get a date with Duke in the quarterfinal, and that will be that.
I don't even think it's a guarantee they beat Florida State.
No, it's definitely not.
Yeah.
It's definitely not. Florida State.
I mean, they're dealing with a lot of injuries, but Matthew Cleveland has been playing really, really good basketball of late.
And they were dealing with a lot of injuries when Syracuse beat them in December. Like a lot of injuries. Does anyone not raise your hand? We're on the internet radio. Does anyone believe this team is going to make the NIT? Say aye.
Crickets.
Does anyone believe this team would accept a bid to the CBI?
No, absolutely not. I don't even know if
all of us agree that the ACC tournament is where it is.
I think next week in Brooklyn will be the end of the season.
Yeah, and I think so too. I think with Benny out too, any possibility of like an NIT or CBI having a purpose has pretty much gone away. I got flamed on Q Sports Talk for ESPN Syracuse for saying that I think there's value in winning the NIT.
Absolutely not.
Can't believe I got flamed for that. There is no value in winning the NIT, but it's okay. I won't get into that
today. Anything beyond moral victories?
I think winning I'm not going to get into my whole case, and we're definitely not going to argue it. I think if you win the NIT, you position yourself well the next year. I think it's actually
from a momentum standpoint.
Yeah, winning a tournament is hard. It doesn't really matter who you're playing against. Winning a tournament is hard.
But will Syracuse fans care if they win the NIT?
No. And this is where the argument kept getting convoluted, where I kept trying to tell the people who were chiming back in, like, I know you don't care.
Yeah.
I think the team could care. But whatever. Yeah. You mentioned, Ethan, the ESPN Syracuse appearance, so why don't we kick it to you first? There was a lot that went on there. I think
Jim has been all over the place the last few weeks.
I mean, there's no more entertaining coach in America. I will stick by that. But maybe Josh Pastner. But
in terms of on-court antics, but not off the court.
Yes, off the court, Jim Boeheim and a mic is an incredible combination. One of the biggest things, at least that got picked up by local media, is that there's a succession plan, which is not surprising.
It's ironclad, Ben.
Yes, it's ironclad. He's like Brett Favre in retirement. But it was there. Outside of that, what else kind of caught, or even if you want to relate to a specific part of that, what caught your eye?
I just think it's interesting because the last time there was a succession plan, it absolutely blew up in Syracuse's face.
It did. Some believe they dodged a bullet because Mike Hopkins has not been great at Washington.
I think Mike Hopkins would have done better at Syracuse than he did at Washington because of how well he recruited in the Northeast.
Yeah.
But you're never gonna be as good as Jim Boeheim was.
No.
But yeah, it was really interesting. He backed up his claim that they're gonna incorporate some man-to-man defense. And I know people say
is nuts.
He's been playing zone for that is not true.
I know he's been playing zone since the 90s, but they were playing zone
up until
that.
about like 2010, 2012. They were still mixing in man. Like the 2003.
But then he took a hard stance.
Right.
And they were still a light mix.
And it's because of personnel.
Yeah.
And the national championship team did mix in some man. It not really at the end of the season in the tournament because the zone was playing so well.
The tournament is when you want the zone the most.
During the season, that team was playing a little bit of man. And I think with this roster they have coming in, it still might be a little difficult to play man.
Well, that's what I've tried to explain to people, I think, on the double
It
overtime
depends.
series.
They don't have the athletes
This team is
to go
more
man
poorly
to man
equipped to
defense.
play man than zone, and they're poorly equipped to play zone. They're not
I
big
think
enough
next
to
year's
play
team will
zone.
be better equipped to play zone because of the length they have.
I think next year's team will be better equipped to play defense. This team is just
I
bad
would be
at defense.
I would be surprised if next year's team is not a top 125 defense, maybe top 100.
I mean,
Very specific. 125.
Top 100. I think if they're not top 100 next year,
that's a problem.
it's a problem. It's
So,
a problem.
yeah,
'Cause
and
top
that-
100 ain't that good.
And looking into next year, every week Jim Boeheim flip-flops when he asked, is Buddy coming back? Is Jimmy coming back? Is Cole coming back?
The Jimmy's always been coming back, despite the fact we all know he filed a petition.
Right.
Yep.
We all know that.
And so we'll see what happens there. But he said yesterday, Buddy is 100% not coming back. That I believe.
You're segueing beautifully, my friend. Johnny, who stays and who leaves?
Oh, I think the trio of Buddy, Jimmy, and Cole are all gone.
Yeah, like Jim said.
I think Cole is going to stay.
You think
Really?
Cole? You think
He said in an exit
because of the
interview.
36?
He said I think he said in an exit interview on Syracuse.com. We've had some guests from Syracuse.com. Shout out Syracuse.com. That he's gonna think about it over the next few weeks after the season ends, and then talk to Coach Boeheim. But I was looking into next year's roster. Do you know who the eldest wing player on next year's roster will be?
I believe his name is Benjamin Williams.
Yeah, it would be Benny. So it might not be obviously, I saw some numbers today that both Jimmy and Benny have been worse on defense than Cole this season. I don't know if the eye test backs that up because it seems like Cole has been pretty bad on the wing of the zone. But he is better than Jimmy. He is better. He's definitely better than Jimmy. Jimmy is the worst wing defender I have ever seen, hands down, in the 2-3 zone. But I think Cole coming back could be a little bit beneficial because he'll have a year in the zone. He'll be a leader on the team. Think about who'll be on this team. Joe Girard. He'll be a senior. Jesse Edwards will be a senior. John Bolajak will be in his fourth year if he doesn't try to leave again. Which
he might try and leave again. I would support John Bolajak in trying to leave again.
I agree
if
with
he
that.
wanted to.
I
think he
I
should.
agree with that. I do not think it would be the end of the world if Cole Swider decided to come back.
It's
But
good
I don't
for-
think
good
it's
for
much of a
Syracuse.
net positive, though.
I think
you
it's
already
good for them.
But
If
you already
Cole
have
Swi-
Girard and Jesse from a leadership standpoint, right?
But
So
how
it's-
much
you
of
don't-
a leader are those guys?
You also don't know if you have guys who can shoot the ball as well as Cole.
Right.
And he's not great, but having him on the roster, you can reduce his role if
Right.
you have other people.
Right.
Having him on the roster.
I think next you will not see a 19 point per game score next. I think next year's team you'll see a much more even distribution with the freshmen you have coming in. Maybe Benny takes a jump, but I wouldn't be shocked if this team didn't play 7 or 8 players at least because of all the pieces you have coming in. And Boeheim's still out recruiting freshmen. So
and they have 5.
Right, they
Now, I
have
will
5,
say-
and he said they might want 6 or 7.
Well, they just brought Judah Mintz
Right,
to a game,
Judah-
and that's a big.
Judah
he
Mintz
would
would be
outrank
huge,
any
yeah.
of their
Judah
guards
Mintz would
coming
be
in.
huge.
Quadir Copeland's their only true guard coming into this class. It's interesting for Cole that Chris Bunch and Justin Taylor, the 2 highest-rated recruits, are both kind of his position.
They were both wings, yeah.
Yeah, they're
Taylor
around
would
the same height.
Taylor would probably play technically the 2 at the top,
Yeah.
the buddy position.
Yeah.
But on offense, he's a wing.
Yeah, and Bunch is thinner. He's taller but thinner than
Right.
Taylor. So it's like neither of these guys are banging it down
Right,
low
and
forwards.
Swider's got a couple inches on him as well.
Yes, Swider's 6'9", Bunch listed at 6'7".
Right.
Johnny, if you were going to make a starting lineup for next year, which is tough, I'm going to make one after you, and then we're going to wrap this puppy up. What do you got?
It certainly starts with Joe and Jesse. Are
Yes,
we
you can
doing this
bookend
with
it.
under the assumption that Cole is back?
I mean, I think you can do what you want.
Okay.
You can do what you want.
Then
if you truly don't believe he's back, then don't.
I don't think he is.
Okay.
So I'll leave Cole out. From there, I think Benny has to be a fixture in there.
So you got Benny at the 3.
Yeah,
so
I'd
you're 1,
say at
3,
the
and
3.
5.
And then you're probably going with, it has to be 2 freshmen. So it's going to be who? It's going to be Taylor, obviously. And then outside of that, maybe Bunch, right? Bunch.
You could. That would be a big lineup.
It would be big, but I would
You
say
could play one of
Bunch
them
is
at the
probably
2.
the one that has the most, do you want to call it upside coming in?
I mean, he's the highest rated.
Right.
He's probably the best body. I've seen some stuff.
He's a gunner. He's a shooter.
Yeah, that's what probably. So like, I've seen some stuff that
Good
would make me
length,
believe
yeah.
that Malik Brown might be a little more athletic, but
Right,
Bunch can shoot it
Malik,
more.
from what I've read about Malik Brown, is that he's a guy who just crashes the glass.
He's a more typical center back.
He's a like your '90s, early 2000s NBA starting power forward.
Okay.
Who's doing all the little things, crashing the glass, put back layups, setting hard screens, like doing that kind of stuff. I don't know much about his shooting ability, but I know that that's where he excels, is in the painted area and on the defensive end as well with his physicality. But I'll go with my lineup here now.
Okay.
So, I guess it's going to be Joe and it's going to be Jesse. I don't think there's
no way it's not those two.
There's no way, unless, Jesse is not, God forbid, he's not able to recover in time for the start of the season, which would be very weird. Yeah, it would 100% be catastrophic, because I think there's a good chance that Frank Anselm leaves. I think Cole's going to come back.
Okay, so
and
you got Cole at the 3?
I think Cole will be in the starting lineup. I'm going to say Benny will be the other starting forward, and I'm going to say starting atop with Joe will be Judah Mintz.
Wow, so you're calling a guy into the starting lineup that's not actively on the team. That's pretty big.
Okay, disclaimer: he visits Wake Forest this weekend.
Yes,
is
and
his
NC
final
State's
visit.
his other
He already
big
visited
contender,
NC State,
yeah.
and DePaul as well. So those are his final 4: NC State, Syracuse, Wake Forest, and DePaul. I have a hard time believing he would commit to NC State after what Kevin Keats seems like he might be on his way out soon.
Yeah. As does Jim Boeheim, though, which is the concern.
Okay, but Kevin Keats or
yeah, I know.
I know you have an affinity for NC State.
I like NC State,
but I think disclaimer: if Mintz comes, I think he will start. If he does not, I think it'll be Taylor.
Okay. Yeah,
but I think it's the Syracuse versus Wake Forest battle right now.
I think you guys are projecting slightly larger lineups than I'm going to go for. I have one in here that's not popular, but
Are you about to put Symir Torrance?
I'm about to put Symir Torrance into the starting lineup, because I don't believe, Jim, that he's going to start a bunch of freshmen. I think he might start a freshman. I think he says he's going to start freshmen because he's watching them play other people in high school, and then he comes and watches guys play here, and they're not physically where he wants them to be.
He's not ready. Yeah.
And he hasn't played the zone. It's easy for him. You kind of just did the Jim thing. Like, he's not ready. And so I would say I got Joe, Symir, Benny, Bunch. But Bunch, Taylor, to me, like, I don't know enough about these guys to say which one's going to start, because I haven't seen them play. So freshman placeholder, I'll say Bunch, and then Jesse Edwards.
I do have an update on Benny from tonight's Jim Boeheim radio show.
All right, we're about to wrap, so let's hear
it. It is a small injury, quote unquote, but enough that he can't play, and said he expects Benny to be back in about 4 weeks.
Okay. I mean, no point in risking it.
No, absolutely not.
So, guys, as we wrap up this episode, is there a message? Is there a goal for Syracuse you want to set? Is there something? Because we went on and on. You can do it for next season or just for the future of the program. People are kind of worried about this year being a pivotal year. Does this team temple, as I put it earlier, and fade into oblivion? Do they not? So what do you have to say to the fans?
I'll say this. Get ready for next year to be the JG3 show.
You're saying it's going to be like 2006 GMAC
year. I kind of called that on the double overtime. I'm not sure how I feel about it. But I did say it out loud.
I do not like that at all. I say the keys to success next season: do not play as tough a non-conference schedule as you played this season.
Yes.
Please don't lose to Colgate and Georgetown again. If you're going to play as tough a non-conference schedule as you do, you can't have those silly losses. So first of all, be smart in the non-conference. Second, the last 2 off seasons have been affected by COVID.
Yes.
Is that you haven't really been able to have that full summer and then fall. This before this season you did, but going into 2020, 2021, you had basically nothing. And then you had 2 weeks off before the start of the season. This off season, you're still dealing with some stuff. Hopefully things are open. You're able to have your full summer workouts, your fall workouts, and you're able to implement the zone so you have it ready. And I think that's the key, is developing guys in the offseason. And obviously the offseason is not the real thing. But, if you're able to get guys to take leaps, if Benny is able to take a leap, if Frank comes back and he's able to take a leap, if Joe is able to go from a middling starting point guard to one of the best point guards in the ACC, which you don't often see someone take a leap between their third and fourth season.
But it happened. G-Mac did. You never know.
It's usually
before.
It's usually between your first and second season, or maybe your second and third season is where you take that leap. But if you have guys that take leaps because you have a solid offseason program, I think that will set you up for success.
What I'll just say to wrap this up, I think next year is going to be more fun. I don't know how many games they're going to win. It likely will be more. I do think there's a chance it's less. It's a very young team, but I think next year will be a little more fun, because it's not fun to be old and bad, but it can be fun to be young and bad, because it looks like you're going to be good in the future. And I think that's where we will leave it for this episode of the Ostrom Avenue Podcast. Make sure to check us out on Twitter at Ostrom Avenue Pod. If you're listening to us, you can check us out on YouTube, the Ostrom Avenue Podcast. We post videos of all of our interviews. No interview today, but we have weekly all our basketball and now all our lacrosse episodes as well. And I'm going to rely on one of you guys to tell me when the next lacrosse broadcast is. Actually, I know
Hobart
what it is.
on
Sunday.
Sunday.
Hobart on Sunday for the Kraus-Simmons Trophy. First, there's basketball on Saturday, 1 p.m. versus Miami. Countdown to tip off at 12:30, the final game in the Dome for Buddy Boeheim, and that should be a lot of fun. But for Ethan Frank and Johnny Gadamowitz, I'm Ben Shulman. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.